to delete the update from the Chamber of Commerce thing. I'm sure y'all know that situation. The next thing would be to move item 12, which is the discussion of core properties, from the end down to the first item under new business. I'm not sure that's what most of these people are here for. Number one, new business. So, I would make a motion that the agenda be approved with those changes. All in favor? Aye. Okay, which brings us, Director Kevin here. Yeah, I was thinking he was back. White Pass?
September was a lot like July and August, very hot and a lot of rain. We had our advisory board meeting, Max was here, yesterday, and we did over 1,800 rounds. And that does not include the tournaments. We had 3 tournaments. ETC, Jason puts one on for the employees. They played 9 holes a day on I think it was a Tuesday and Wednesday that they did that. We had the NCS, which was out there at Cherokee County. They wanted to raise money. They came to me and wanted to raise money for a travel baseball team. A couple of them that played there over the weekend. They came to me and wanted to have it. I like that because all people were from out of town. And it's on Wednesday, so good for them, good for us. The other one was the Men's Association. We did the third one. It was there. I think they got one more left, but it was a really, really good month. You can see there, all the way down the list. So, but other than that, the horses drive, we need some rain. We watered all through September, all we could. The well, as far as projects go, the well, Lloyd's not here, but he came up and we got it staked out for the well house. Should have that pad forward. And then on the pavilion, I'm going to backfill it with rock. I've got a load up there today and enough trucks to get it done, and we should be able to get a slab on it by I'd say the fifth part of the week.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Director. We don't have an update on the airport and public works right now. We'll have to try to get that. Charlie, you want to take an update on the 5-year comprehensive plan?
Well, we'll be voting on that tomorrow night. It's the comprehensive plan is complete and been approved by the state, so we'll be voting on it.
Charlie, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I tried to find that on the website. I mean, where is the comprehensive plan?
Where is it?
Well, it's been, you know, it hasn't been placed on the website, but we certainly should have, once it's approved.
Well,
I see
even
it
before
after
it's approved.
I want to see it before it's approved.
Yeah.
But I can't, every time I type in the search thing, there's nothing there, and I've gone to all the places and opened everything up, but
And I looked at that in terms of, not this specific one, but the other one we talked about this morning. We haven't been putting these on the website. I think it's a really good idea and we'll start, but the ads in the paper typically specify that it can be, you can review it here in this office. So it has been available in that sense for review, and that's what way we've always done it. But I think we need to be putting them on the website, and that's what we will be doing going forward. But they're not there yet.
The other one, the original is on planning and zoning's website. The first one at the bottom of the things to look at is the comprehensive plan. So when you go on
Yes.
planning and zoning, the first one.
When you say the original now,
The one we
The one-
did in, oh,
the one that we're,
the expires in 24, yeah.
okay, but not the current one.
Not the updated.
Okay.
The last
Yeah.
update should be on that.
2014. difference is, because part of our problem here in the county is all the wrong assumptions in there, and that's how we have.
We'll get you a copy of it
We've also had lots of public meetings about it. We've also had lots of public meetings along the way and shown
I know,
and
and they have,
discussion.
I haven't been able to attend those. I know there have been a couple of meetings.
What may be, the best thing would be if you will leave an email, we'll just broadcast it out as an attachment to everybody on email. You'll get it a lot quicker than having to wait for us to print it out.
Before it's voted on, right?
But it won't be voted on until tomorrow night, so, yeah, we'll get it today.
Just give me your email before you leave.
Okay, update on the swimming pool project. You all aware that we had a very generous offer from the mayor and city council of East LJ to purchase property across the Veterans Bridge there, Memorial Park, across from the soccer field. And we've been kind of doing our due diligence on that and trying to work out everything that we can, because it would have been a really nice place to put the pool. Unfortunately, we have determined that we can't do that. We did get a grading plan, we commissioned that on it. Excuse me, we got that back. And what it said is that we were gonna have to bring in 86,000 cubic yards of dirt in order to build that up to where we could put the swimming pool there. That's a deal breaker. So that put us in the position of either putting it out at Clear Creek or trying to find another location. Nobody wants it in Clear Creek. I think everybody's been very clear about that. So looking for another location is going to be an expensive proposition. One of the reasons that we decided to put it somewhere other than where the current pool is because of the expense that would be incurred in tearing out the old pool to put the new pool there. But if we're gonna have to be looking at buying property somewhere for the new pool, we might as well just spend the money tearing out the old pool and just put the new pool back where the old pool currently is. So that's our direction right now. And we will be pursuing that.
I have a question on how these meetings work with the class.
Sure. No, you can't.
State your name before you speak, if you don't mind.
Okay, my name is Ann Pettit, and we are a homeschooling family in this community, so we are from the Banks County area. We're familiar with Hall County, we live there, so we're really familiar with parks, and it is important to us, and we've never utilized the pool, but we're used to splash parks. We love splash parks, and I didn't know if that was even an option to put in. You know, Hall County has several of them, but they're just such a great option other than swimming. You know, because swimming, that's fun, but the splash parks was just a really cool option. So.
We've had a lot of discussions about that, and it's something that we do want to have, but it's not part of this current pool project. Hopefully, at some point, though, we will have that. Now, it may not be right there by the pool,
Yeah, oh, that's
because there's been a couple of locations in River Park there that's not really right next to the pool that have been identified as being a good spot to put something like that, so.
And it doesn't have to be big. You know,
Yeah.
it's usually just kind of a small area that shoots the water. But I think keeping it where it is a good idea. That's just less money. But, I mean, you're still gonna have to spend money, but it'd be more money to buy.
Well, that's the thing, once we get to the point where it's not being bought for us,
Yeah,
you know.
unless some donor wants to give you all.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
but, yeah, for now, I think the most economical route is just to tear that over now. Now, we're gonna have to see what we find underneath it. And we may still have to bring in some dirt to shore that up, but it won't be anything like what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Any other questions on swimming pool? Okay, all right. Discussion and possible action of life flight coverage for the citizens of Gilmer County.
Do we have any citizens wishing to speak or we don't?
Um,
How do you want to do that?
Yeah, I always skip that, don't I? I'm not used to it being at the top. I'm used to it being
I'm
last.
thinking there might be a few
No,
citizens that
I'm
want to
used to it
speak.
being last.
Sure.
Okay, where it's citizens wishing to speak, anybody that wants to speak on any topic, and we all know what the topic's gonna be. And I want everybody to be able to speak that wants to speak. The only thing that I will ask is don't everybody say the same thing over and over. So, with that said,
And state your name,
and
please.
state your name. Yes, sir, did you want to?
Yes, sir. I'm Marcus Lindsay. I'm with Air Methods in regards
Oh.
to the air medical program. Would you like to wait till next?
Yeah, I jumped one ahead on that.
Okay.
And they called me on it, so.
Okay.
We'll give you time to speak before we get
We're
there.
back to the citizens wishing to speak. Okay. Yes.
I really just want to reiterate the email that I sent to both of you the other day, and that is, I think it's positive that we're looking at Carter's Lake, taking the recreation facilities over, provided that we can forecast to be either revenue neutral or revenue positive very quickly. And basically, that's all I'm going to say about that. The other thing, being on the advisory board of the golf course, I just want to thank each of you in the county for the support that you've given us over at the golf course. Constantly get comments from people that I've never seen out there before that just love the course. Now that's in addition to all of this play out there, but the course is in excellent shape, and Mike and his crew, deserve a lot of credit, or all the credit for that. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Terry Palmieri. I'm the Associate Director for the Southern Off-Road Bicycle Association. I was the past president of the North Georgia Mountain Bike Association, chapter of SORBA. And been here for quite a while. My husband and I used to own the Cartagay River Bicycle Shop. We've been deeply involved with mountain bike recreation opportunities at Carter's Lake for many, many years, over 25 years. We're in the middle of redoing the trails there. We've submitted a comprehensive concept plan to add additional trail to Woodring Branch and to Ridgeway. We've already spent over about $35,000 in building a new trail and paying for this concept plan. We've been working closely with Army Corps to get it approved. I think we're in the final stages of it. I'm going to be writing hopefully a recreational trails grant to do the next phase of construction and build. I cannot tell you how important recreation is important to this county. Both Carlene and I attended the Outdoor Economy Conference in Asheville, North Carolina, and it is a very important part of making our area economy sustainable. And when I talk about sustainable, it's not only building sustainable trails, it's having a sustainable economy. I could talk more in depth about that, but we don't have the time. But it's extremely important. The other thing that's very important is we applied for an International Mountain Bike Association Ride Center designation. In comparison, Park City, Utah has a gold level. We can come in at the bronze level, and the new trails at Carter's Lake is extremely important to achieving that designation and being able to progress to silver, and I think we can do gold. That's a huge thing for this county. We did become the mountain bike capital of Georgia in 2008. We've had great support from the county. We've had great support from Army Corps. We've had wonderful support from our other land managers. It takes a community to make sure that we have these great recreational opportunities. And that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Name's David Miller. I think looking at the cooperative agreement, I think it's kind of a no lose for the county. I think two things we have to look at. One, the financials on that is positive now, as long as the county doesn't add a lot of overhead to their management of it, I think it can still stay positive. And it's a matter of whether the county wants to have a say in what happens at Carter's Lake and what goes on there. And this would give us a strong say in what happens at Carter Lake, let's develop the hours of operation. So I think that the outright lease, I think has more risk, and you really have to look at that. But the cooperative agreement, I don't see much risk, because I understand it, you also have a 90-day out. If it's not working for the party, you've got a 90-day out clause. So you're not committed to a long-term thing that you're stuck with and you can't get out of it, it's not working.
I wasn't aware of the 90-day.
For either side,
I thought we were in for 10 years.
on the lease.
That's just a lease.
I'm John GIlmer, and
Yes,
and
sir.
I've been fishing in Carter's Lake for 25 years, and I don't think it's fair to take my boat ramp away. And the other thing is, if you stand around a bank fishing in the summertime, you can run into people from all over this country that come and visit and say how beautiful it is. They walk the little trails and they come with their family, and it's just unbelievable, the joy that gives people to be out in a pristine place like that. To take that away from the public is a sin.
One comment that I want to make on that, because I've got several contacts from people, the gist of which is, how dare you close Carter's Lake, we pay our taxes. I want to be very clear, and I'm not trying to throw you all under the bus, but I want to be very clear that the county is not closing Carter's Lake. What we're trying to do is react to a situation that none of us here created, to try to make sure that everything goes on as usual. But as of this very moment, the county has no control over Carter's Lake, and the county is not proposing to close Carter's Lake.
Yeah, there's a lot more involved
It's
than.
the Army Corps. I want to point out that I'm Miriam Fleming, I'm the manager at Carter's Lake. We are not closing Carter's Lake. The closes at the moment are seasonal. Woodring Branch Boat Ramp will reopen in the spring. The Doll Mountain Picnic Area will reopen in the spring.
So you can fish when you say you can fish?
There are other
That's
boat
rules.
ramps, there is other boat ramps that are available for use at Dam Site and at
I
Doll
live by
Mountain and at
Ridgeway. I
Ridgeway.
live at Ridgeway.
Ridgeway Boat Ramp is still going to be open.
Ridgeway will be.
Yes,
So
Ridgeway
Ridgeway
is not closing
Okay,
for the winter.
because otherwise we wouldn't have any access to get a boat overboard on our side of the county. We'd have to clean around the other side of the county.
Correct, and there is a boat ramp for the winter that will be available on both sides of the lake. Ridgeway will be open, the boat ramp at Doll Mountain will be open all winter long, as is Dam Site.
And there's no future plans to close Ridgeway.
Not at the moment, no. I can't say that that won't happen
They
in the
close-
future, but we are not anticipating that that would happen,
close-
especially since we're making the investments with the bike trails.
They closed the campground quite a while back at Ridgeway.
Correct, because of the
Campgrounds.
Georgia transmission line going through there. That was not our choice.
Okay. The fish bite all year, by the way. They don't stop right now.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Nathan Burnett. I wanted to just kind of echo that I grew up here and have a lot of memories on that lake and so forth. And I'm thankful for some of the people like Terry and the level that they put into the area. My question is, and you'll have to forgive me if I'm behind the ball a little bit, but what is the cost that is associated with keeping these areas open during the winter? Or not, I understand, campground, nobody's really camping there, but as far as access to the ramp, that's the first thing I wanted to know was, how much can it cost? I understand you gotta clean trash, you gotta take care of the area. Can somebody answer that?
We are not at liberty to discuss our budgetary with the general public. There's a lot that goes into the type of contract that we have. There are hidden costs that we don't even get to see because of the type of contract that we have. So to give you a perfect number to say this is what it costs, we just can't do that because of the contracting mechanism that we have. I can tell you what the visitation is during the winter, and for specifically at Woodring Branch. Woodring Branch has the lowest visitation of any of the parks during the winter months, which is one of the reasons why we chose to impact it, because it has the least impact to the project by closing Wood Ring. But as far as discussing our budgets and the costs, we're not going to discuss that. I can just tell you that the visitation is one of the main reasons why we closed it.
One side question, this is just from what I've heard, people discussing this on public forums and stuff. Is it a perspective that the Corps of Engineers is dropping maintenance of the area, and the county has the option to assume the taking care of the area?
There would be discussions between the county and the Corps to determine who is going to do what. So to say that at this very moment that I'm going to do X and the county is going to do this other thing, we can't say that because we have not entered that part of the discussions at the moment. So that would just be speculation at this point. The only definite is that if we enter into the cooperative agreement, that the county must collect the fees so that they can be returned for use at the project.
I believe this gentleman's name
Yeah, I'll stand up. My name is Paul Sheath, S-C-H-U-E-T-H. My wife and I live out on Woodbury Branch Road, so your closure has an impact on us personally. We started coming up to Carter's Lake 20 years ago out of the Atlanta area, going to Doll Mountain, camping with our kids, bringing up youth group from church. Fell in love with the community and the lake. We love it so much that we built our house 15 years ago out on Woodbury Branch Road. We are the last property before your all's property. We hike it, we bike it, we fish it, we do the mountain bike trail. Betsy walks that thing all the time. We use that boat ramp. I can't believe it's closed. It's probably a separate issue. Understanding campgrounds do not understand closed access to the boat ramp. Makes no sense whatsoever. And you negatively affect my property value, right? By closing that and not having access to that, if I ever wanted to sell, and all of my neighbors, another property owner, it negatively affects us out there in a way that's really not fair. It doesn't cost anything to go pick up the trash. You're gonna have to come to the bike trail to pick up the trash anyway. And you can just run on down the road once a week and pick up the trash and keep the boat ramp open. We fish, like I said, we hunt. We even go down to the boat ramp to skip rocks with our grandkids. You can't replace it. You can't take that away. So we've heard about the economic impact to the county. There's an economic impact to all of us here in GIlmer County, especially if you own property out that way. Your property value goes down. If my property value goes down, I will be here fighting my property assessment. I'm not going to pay the same kind of taxes if my property is not worth what it is today. To me, and I so thank you guys for having a forum and allowing the community to express their point of view. And the last thing I would tell you is that I'm willing to help. So if you need people to sit on committees or to help with different kind of things, volunteers, what have you, happy to help drive revenue, happy to drive activity out at the lake. We could have bass tournaments, we could have water ski events, we could have all kinds of things out there that would cover the cost. People come here and people have moved here because of that lake. Closing down access, and I've heard that first it's Woodring, and then it's going to be Ridgeway, and then after that it's going to be this. And I'm not sure we're getting full story, no offense, I know you guys are on our side and you're doing the best that you can to try and help us with this asset in the county. But if we were to lose access to that, and the revenue that that would bring into this county, that it does bring into the county, and the value that it has, to me it's, I know how I personally would vote, but I live there. So if it closes, I don't know how much longer I'll live there, probably couldn't sell my place. But anyway, thank you guys for listening and hearing what people have to say.
I just want to reiterate, Woodland Branch is closed for the season. It is not, the
No, I understand
program is
that.
not closed permanently.
But people use
No,
it.
I
Was it closed
understand.
last
And
year?
use it
No, no, this is the first time that they've
No,
closed
the
access.
campground closes every season. This is
But
the
this is the
first
first
time.
time the ramp has ever been.
Correct.
The
Correct.
fish bite all year.
I did, Betsy Sheath, S-C-H-U-E-T-H. Question for you. I talked to the campground attendants and they said that next year's campground season was reduced to 4 months for next year. Is that accurate?
At Woodring Branch, that's correct.
So what is it currently now?
It was April to October.
And what will it be
we are
next year?
receiving From Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Okay, just, as far as visitors go, that campground is always full. You can't get a campsite there.
All of
So
them are
that
always
doesn't-
full.
Yeah.
That
All
does,
of them.
right, and I'm reading something in the schools, and I was talking to one of the admins, and she said, what do you mean? We only get so many days now to camp, and now it's even less. So that's impacting our educators who have some summer time off and can get their kids out doing wonderful, healthy family activities. And so that impacts not just people who live on Woodring Branch Road. And my other question would be, how does the public know that we're going to be closed or that it's only going to be open for 4 months? All these people that are planning their camping for next year, my neighbor bought a pass and she's like, what do you mean? I just bought my pass and now I can't go put my kayak in. So, how is the public being made aware?
The campground reservation site where people go to make the reservations, there is a
Is it
notice on there, and we are working with our public affairs to make a public notification.
So when you say for the season, when do you intend to reopen Woodring Branch?
The
I missed
Days
it.
area,
The boat ramp, the boat ramp.
It'll be open in April. The regular campground and the boat ramps will be open in April. The developed campground will be open for Memorial Day weekend. And then when we get around to November 1st of 2020 next year, that's when we would close for the season.
One thing that I'd like to point out here, we're in our budget cycle right now, and there's a lot of department heads in Gilmer County that are not gonna get what they've asked for. And so they're gonna have to make some adjustments to work within what they're given. And I think that's what's going on here. These folks aren't just sitting around thinking, maybe we ought to close these for the winter. They're reacting to the budget that they've been given and trying to work within that. So, I know that suggestions have been made to call your congressmen, your senators, and that's generally scoffed at, but if you're talking about a federal budget, these folks can't impact that. They're just told, here's what you've got, make it work. And so I think that's what's going on here. I don't think that this is something that they're wanting to do. It's just trying to work with the amount that they're given in their budgets.
They're probably wasting too much money. That's what it is. How many people?
Whoa. We're talking one at a time.
Oh, excuse me.
Thank you. Rudy Halbart, Hanbart. I had a speech ready, but a lot of people have been talking about it. I've got a question. It's a lot of contractual situation between the county, the Corps, and tomorrow I understand it's a vote. And what will be the vote about?
That's something that we'll be discussing as the first item of new business. And
Okay.
don't really want to get into that now, but as soon as this discussion is over and we have one other item there, we will be into the real discussion between us as opposed to an open comment session, and we'll get into that. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ann Pettit, and I have a question, it's just kind of throwing it out there. Is there not any way that we could allow the Carter's Lake to be taken over by the state park and recreation? I think that's an incredible idea. I mean, they already do this, they know what they're doing, they have people in place to, take care of the campgrounds, to do the pickup. And there's already 76 people that have volunteered and said they would volunteer to pick up the trash. I mean, I understand this lady, has her thing of what she's needing to do or whatever, but I mean, is it really even open for discussion to do something different?
Well, I think when you say open for discussion, I don't know the rules on this. I doubt it would be prohibited for the state to take it over, but open for discussion would be whether or not the state wanted to discuss taking it over, and I've got a feeling that that's probably a no. Not that anybody would refuse a cheerful offer to do that if it is permitted.
I have another question, and I may be outnumbered when I say this, but we love LJ. We think LJ is awesome, and I know a lot of retirement people move here because there's no taxes for the seniors. From what I'm understanding, what you're saying is there's no money. You guys are not making any money, but there's so many people that are not paying taxes. I mean, I'm paying out the wazoo for the school taxes, and my kid don't even go to school.
What you have to keep in mind is that over 65 senior tax exemption is only for school taxes. If we were to tomorrow decide we're going to put that back in place, the county wouldn't see that now. School would. But that's only for school taxes, and it does not affect the county whatsoever.
So is there any way that you could move money? I mean, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm a budget person. I mean, y'all may all have lots of income, but you know what I'm saying, like, there's ways that you can move stuff and put stuff differently. I just hate to see.
We have people
it when
who
you
are
miss.
asking us, can you move money and put it all in roads? We have other people who are saying, can you move money and take over Carter's Lake? Other people are saying, can't you move some money to get us something in Parks and Rec? And the answer to all that is really no, because what's going to happen here in this budget cycle is that each department will end up with probably just a little bit less than what they feel like they need to do what they have to do. The other thing that you have to think about when you're talking about moving money is, you're not just talking about moving $50,000. We're talking about moving $1 million, $2 million. You don't move that amount of money from a bunch of $200,000 budgets. And the great majority of our budgets are from $200,000 to $600,000. The only place you can get that is public safety. And
They don't make it, they shouldn't make a lot of what they do.
the thing about that is,
Amen.
the sheriff, when somebody's robbing you, you expect a deputy. If your house is on fire, you expect a fireman. More than that even is, when you clutch at your chest and fall over, you expect an ambulance. Those are the places that the money would have to come from if we transfer money in. And they're just barely adequately staffed now. So unfortunately, no, transferring money is not an option. Any other comments?
I have one more comment. Terry Palmieri. I've worked for the past 7 years with many different federal land agencies. So Army Corps of Engineers is one of them, National Forest is another, National Parks is another. I have seen their budgets decreased every year, and having to spend their money on fire suppression. Forest Service is really, it falls all on them. They do a great job with the staff that they have. They're understaffed, they're under budgeted. It is up to us as citizens to encourage our Congress to please fund our national land agencies adequately. If that's important to you, that's where it needs to start. They have no control over it. The county has no control over it. So it's us as citizens that need to have that grassroots effort to encourage our senators and representatives to please adequately fund our national land agencies. That's our land, that's public land. And I care very deeply about that, and I'm sure all of you here do too.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Mike, and this is my wife, Linda Lushko. We live in Murray County, but we were landowners in Woodring Branch. My father, when this lake was built, I came up with him and he took pictures. He was a photographer. He took pictures of when it was being constructed. And little did I know that years later I would be walleye fishing on my pontoon boat and having friends come up and fish on our pontoon boat. And people that come to this area, my friends keep coming back. They say, I like GIlmer County and I love this lake and I don't want to go anywhere else. And when this lake was built, I don't know if you know, but Judge Pinnell over in Murray County along with some other gentlemen, actually did the study and did the emphasis to build Carter's Lake. And they said that this was the jewel of northwest Georgia. And I think it's the diamond of GIlmer County. But the thing that we need to understand is if we start closing the gates and when you can go and when you can not come in, people that come to this area, I mean, people that come and they bring their kids and they want to go fishing and they're all excited about, going to the lake and then coming up and then the gate be locked. That's going to make people angry and mad, and they're not going to want to come back to GIlmer County. And it's going to affect the negatively economic impact of not only this county, but all the counties that surround Murray, Pickens, Gordon, and GIlmer. It will have a negative impact on the economy. And I think there would be some ways to bring in some revenue so that we could be in the red and not in the black. The campground, it's already been mentioned. That campground to me could be open all year round. And the reason I say that is because there are families that want to come up during their fall break with their kids and during their spring break with their kids. And right now, the comments I hear is people will try to make reservations to get in the campground. They can't do it. They can't even get in weeks in advance. So, I want to see Carter's Lake stay open year round. I want to see the gates open. And I think there's enough emphasis on groups and conservation groups that would be willing to help do whatever's necessary to kind of cut some of the costs. I would be willing to volunteer to go down, once a week, once a month, clean up, trim, limbs off of the ramp, or do whatever's necessary to help defray the cost. I'm 70 years old, had 2 knee replacements, but I'm willing to do whatever it needs to do. And I guess the other thing I've thought about, being from Murray County, and I talked to the Commissioner, Greg Hogan, yesterday, and I said, have you been approached by the Corps about the re-reg regulation? Are they going to close the re-regulation lake down below Carter's Dam? Because, half the lake's in GIlmer, the rest of it's in Murray. So where does that stand? He was kind of appalled that he had not been approached by the Corps. And why not partnership with both GIlmer and Murray, somehow partnership, to defray the cost and maybe do a partnership that way. But, can the Corps, I'd like to know, are you also planning to do the same thing with the re-regulation dam?
Not at the moment. When we were looking at it, there is infrastructure in those areas that make it difficult to partner the same way. So I have to try and investigate with my security office, with our dam safety office, to figure out what the security requirements are before I would even approach Murray County about trying to partner in those areas specifically. Not that we don't want to. It's that right now it's that infrastructure that is in those areas that have certain safety requirements that is our concern. And until I can get guidance on what I need to do, that's the reason why we have not approached Murray County yet.
I just know that our commissioner is headed to Washington D.C. this week, and he's going to bring this issue before whoever at the White House to try to keep this lake open and to try to do what he can. He promised me that. He said he would try to do that. And he was going to try to contact, I believe, Mr. Parrish, and talk with him about this too. So this lake is just, what I like about this lake, we don't have dock pollution. You go to Lake Lanier, you got dock pollution. You can't go on the weekend without 3 and 4 foot swells on that lake. We don't have that on Carter's. This is a once in a lifetime lake that we should have, all of us should have access to. We all pay federal taxes. It's not just my lake, it's everyone sitting in this room pays federal taxes. It's our lake. It's kind of like saying the Atlanta airport is going to be closed. We're going to put a gate across it. If I were to tell you that, You know, that'd be ridiculous. You can't just close the Atlanta airport. And I don't think you can just close and put a gate and say, we're gonna be open and close at certain times. It's gonna make people angry that come up to this area to recreate and find out their favorite fishing hole, they can't get to it. And then what are you gonna do when that gate is closed and people think, well, I'll just make a path down behind the gate and go down? What are you gonna do there? You gonna ticket those people, or are you gonna say, no, the gate's closed, so we're gonna have to give you a fine? I mean, these are questions that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Joey?
Well, I wasn't gonna weigh in, but I do want to say something about the campground. Last year, they sold 465,000 RVs, and there's more and more baby boomers retiring, and they don't create that many campsites. And as an RVer, it is so hard to find a campsite anywhere, and especially around the lakes, and we have so few here in North Georgia. I keep wondering why there aren't more campgrounds coming up the 515 corridor. I know that they've just opened a new one in Blue Ridge finally, but to hear that the campground is going to be reduced even further, and Memorial Day to Labor Day is pretty much when families with kids camp, but us old people try to camp any other time. And you do not want to camp in the summer because the bathrooms are just full of, smaller children, which I used to have smaller children that are now bigger. But so there's so many people that want those sites in April and May, and especially all the northerners that come down. Georgia is, tropic compared to Minnesota and Canada and whatever, and so they want to camp here in the winter because Florida's too hot. And to keep reducing our number of camping days, and in any of the things I've read, I haven't seen if we enter into some kind of a cooperative agreement and where we're going to collect the revenues, does that include the campground?
Yes.
Then I think to reduce the number of days when it's booked solid, I mean, you can't find a campsite.
As I understand it, if we enter into a cooperative agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the county will decide when it's open and when it's not.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Another quick point, Rudy Halbert again. I totally agree with her about campground. Every year, it's 500,000 new trailers sold in US. It's less and less campground all over US. So people are looking to camp more in the winter, in the fall, and the spring. And I don't know what advertising we're doing there at our campground, but that should be filled up all year round. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Andreas Zagarola, Z-A-G-A-R-O-L-A. 15-year resident of GIlmer County. I'm one of those, our family's one of those people that have one of those new campers. We can't book a site right now, or have been trying to book at Carter's Lake.
For months.
We're not retired. So the only time for us to go camping is on the weekends, and we can only go to Allatoona or Lanier all the way out there. We don't have a lot of time to do that. And so we love going to Carter's Lake any chance we get, and we actually like camping over the winter seasons and the cooler seasons because it's less crowded, and we really enjoy it. Plus, we camp all over the place, and Carter's Lake has one of the cheapest fees I've ever seen. We're used to paying 3 times that fee, easily, happily, to camp. So why not just raise the fees a little bit, or a lot, and you're gonna have, it's such a beautiful lake, everyone likes to camp there. You're going to have people come in and paying the fees with no issue, honestly. So I don't see I understand the budget cuts. That makes a lot of sense, but why not raise fees or something like that in order to, supplement something?
One of the problems, as I understand it with that, is that if these folks raise the fees, that additional money that's brought in just goes straight into the treasury in Washington, doesn't come back to them. The only way it would come back to them would be if somebody in Washington were to say, well, we're getting more money and we can budget more money.
With the,
Not likely to happen.
with the cooperative arrangement, does that change anything?
And yes, that would allow the county to set the fees.
So I'd say.
And collect the fees.
And collect the fees.
It also gives us citizens, you know, the opportunity to put our money where our mouth is. If you want the lake, you gotta use the lake, you gotta pay the fees, all right? So it gives us control of the county of getting those dollars back, instead of going to the federal treasury, they come back in here to sustain those activities. The comment on the campground, I mean, the RV growth, it's been growing, last article I read, 15% a year the last several years. It's also not in the demographic that you think it is. It's not the baby boomers that are causing an increase, it's the younger generation. The younger generation buying more RVs to get out and be less expensive to travel with their families and enjoy the outdoors.
But I think the thing that's important to understand, and almost nobody realizes this because it's so unusual, I guess, maybe not from the federal government, but it's just the fact that they can raise all the fees they want. They don't see the money.
Right.
So,
Where's all the money from the power they generate on that radio? Who gets that money? Because they didn't have the generator open wide
The
open.
Southeastern Power Authority is in control of the funds that are generated
Well,
from that.
Well, that is public land, it's United States of America, it says right on my
No.
flag, I'm right there, it says USA. And you figure those guys would maybe turn loose of some of their money, they're making all this darn money, why don't they finance all this crap?
and it's an excellent point, but another one that needs to be to the congressmen and the senators, because these folks have no control over that, and we have.
Yeah, but I'm so tired of people abusing money, I mean, you watch it all the time, I mean, look at it.
I
Open
understand,
your
but
eyes
you're
and
preaching
see.
to the choir here. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. You know, my husband's passionate about this. He's lived in this county for over 25 years. When he first bought his 45 acres down there, he had to drive in on a pig trail to get to his property. It took 2 years to get power down there, and he cleared that land by hand and went down to a spring to take a bath to go to work. He's got 2 boat ramps down there. And he's telling me, now we're being told one of them's being closed for the winter. And it's only a matter of time before the other one's closed for however amount of time that they decide power's gonna be. I'm not a stupid person. I've got 6 years of college. I have a college degree in accounting. Okay? Moving money around is what you guys do. But it doesn't matter where you move or how you move it. There's gotta be some way to get from point A to point B. And I'm gonna tell you what, we go down to Florida for a month out of every winter. And you can't, you have to book, if you're lucky, you have to book that place a year in advance to get a spot because the Canadians are coming down booking spots up. So you can't even get a spot to put an RV anymore. Park it out behind the back of a Cracker Barrel. So you spend all these years and you work your tail off and then you have nowhere to go. And then the fish stop biting in the middle of the winter. So we're gonna close the boat ramps. That's ludicrous.
Okay,
You need to keep, but there's gotta be some mechanism or some vehicle, some way to get to where we can at least keep, I think campgrounds need to be open too. It's a lot of
Let me
money.
ask you though, for these people here, what would your suggestion be?
What would my suggestion be? I'm not sure how all these vehicles work together, okay? I haven't done that much research with it yet. I'm going to. And I'm gonna be on the phone with Doug Collins' office. Because I understand it's federal land. I understand it's Army Corps land. I don't understand how they can partner with the county. I don't understand.
Well,
all that.
as of now, they're not.
But there's people in this room that understand that. And there's gotta be some way to keep those, the boat ramps, like, there can't be that much upkeep. It's picking up some trash down there. And even if, you know, we've gotta get together as retired people somehow and form a committee and organize to go down there and pick up the trash, you know, every day.
They're part-time Jordan Power.
But, and I understand what John's saying, you know, they're making money off of generating power there. So, it's a beautiful lake, and this is a beautiful county. And we don't want to be shut off on our side of the county to be able to access the lake even during the middle of the winter. The fish bite all winter long. This guy fishes almost every day. And you've got guide services that take tourists out on the lake, you know, to fish. We've got beautiful resources here that we've just like put a wall up and said, well, we're only gonna do it this much time, and the rest of it, and there's revenue to be generated.
We
The county.
haven't, except that we, including these folks, haven't put a wall up. The wall that is going up, if one goes up, is coming from Washington DC, not these folks and not the county.
I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that you guys, the powers that be, that you guys understand and know how these mechanisms work, okay? I don't. All I know is there's gotta be some way to keep these boat ramps open even during the winter time, because a lot of people access this lake even in the winter. And would access this lake even during the winter. And I understand the campground situation too, because we have an RV also. But, our campground, RV sites are getting as rare as hen's teeth. It's hard to get a spot to park your RV. And so, we don't use that for Crows Lake, we live down that way, but, off of 282. But there's gotta be some way that you guys can put your heads together, because you guys are brilliant people, and get this thing done. And I know there's a lot of retired people in this county who would be probably happy to go down there and pick up trash once a week, or once a month, or whatever, you know. I mean, it seems dumb to just shut this whole thing down, because we got a lot of people, we got a jewel sitting out there. And just shut the gates. It don't make much sense to me. So, I won't be calling Doug Collins' office. I'm gonna get to the bottom of something before it's over with. But, like I said, you guys know more than I know. You know, you understand what's going on, and you know what mechanisms. I mean, are we leasing that land out there that the boat, the big marina's on? I mean, how is that working?
That is a commercial lease, as I understand it, and it's a separate entity from all of this.
Yeah, well, maybe they need to go up on their rates too, so we can keep the whole thing open.
I think that's all close.
That goes back to the idea that we can raise the rates, but these folks can raise the rates all they want to.
But they go into a
But the
whole.
money just goes straight to Washington, they don't see any of it back.
So it goes into that big Washington hole, okay?
Exactly.
Unless you collaborate.
If you've watched the news lately, that's not a good thing. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents. I just think that, you know, there ought to be some way to keep the lake open and keep the boat ramps open, because I can't see there's that much upkeep on a boat ramp, to be honest with you. You know, maybe the trash bin. So, thank you.
Taking money out of parking thing.
Thank you, Max Holstein again. I just wanted a clarification on something you said earlier. You said that you couldn't discuss or wouldn't discuss the income and expenses here?
Not in this public forum, correct?
Okay, I just want to make sure that you would discuss those or disclose those to the county.
If we are, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask one clarification? Yes, sir. So, we've talked a lot, I think, about what the court can and can't do and money and all that. So just to clarify, if the county reached an agreement with the court to manage the recreation sites is what we're talking about, correct?
Well, to lease, not to annex.
To manage, right? That's okay, I can't hear either. So, that means the court would receive the revenue and would be able to control the fees on all of those recreation sites, is that correct?
The Corps would not receive those fees.
I mean, the county, I meant to say the county.
Yes, the county.
So the
would
county
receive
would
those.
receive the fees, the counties could set those fees. Can the county promote the lake and activity and all of that? So the county can drive revenue, drive access, keep things open. The county can control access, so yes. So the only thing the county wouldn't do is anything with the power management and the dam and safety and all those kinds of things, correct?
Correct. Well, we would still be.
You would still do
We
that?
would be still maintaining, like the heavy maintenance in those areas.
Meaning?
That's what the cooperative management is the county would be operating it. So they would be providing park attendants, collecting fees, cleaning, mowing, whereas I would be doing things like paving, rehabbing
Okay.
sites,
Any
fixing
washouts,
electrical, any
Okay.
water lines that need to be repaired, those types of things. So
Okay.
they would be doing just the day-to-day operations, and we would be taking care of the heavy lifting in those areas.
Okay, so the fees that would be generated would stay here and would be under the control of the Board of Commissioners?
They would stay here, but they would only be allowed to be reused for the site they generated under the
Okay. You couldn't tell I'm in favor, so.
I know I've spoken, and I know a lot of people around here have not had a chance to talk. I would just be curious, a show of hands, how many people are in favor of the county going into a cooperative agreement to help keep these? Because there's sure a lot of people here that haven't gotten a chance to talk. I just wanted Charlie to see that.
I pretty much made that.
The school teacher in me, raise your hand.
Anybody else?
Say
Yes,
something
ma'am.
real quick. This is more just supportive. I know a lot of you might know that there is a mountain bike team of kids that are on the Georgia League. And last year they were 13th in the state. And this is GIlmer County. Now they're 5th in the state. And we have 35 kids on bikes 4 days a week from the end of June until the beginning of November. So instead of sitting at home on electronics, and a lot of them are homeschoolers, so they don't have they don't have the public school stuff. So I'm a coach on the team and I'm the director of the high school composite part of the team. Woodring has been awesome. They've been supportive. I mean, we've got 35 kids and 20 coaches out there at least once a week practicing at Woodring Amati Trail, and it's just been awesome. I mean, these kids are excellent athletes. They are going, they're getting on the podium, feeling proud of themselves. And so I'm really just saying thank you, and we love it. And anything the kids can do, we love giving the kids jobs. We want them to work, we want them to pick up trash, we want them to feel responsible, and they're already working on trails. They're actually recycling at these races. There's like 5,000 people that attend these races they go to, and we're picking up recycled bags, helping getting that started. So we want them to work. So if there's anything they can do to help keep things open, keep things running for free, I mean, volunteer. We want them to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Is this a vote that we're going to be able to take, or that's going to be taken on whether the county assumes this or not? And that's going to be tomorrow night?
Well, that's what we're going to discuss when we actually get into the discussion part of this with the commissioners. Right now, this is just the public comment portion of it.
Okay.
If you, we have moved that up to the first item under new business. So when this part is done, we have one piece of old business in between for those that would like to hang around, and we'll get right then into the discussion with that. That will be more Carlene and I and these folks getting into more details. Y'all will still be allowed to comment. But it's something I don't want to get into in the public comment section. We'll do that when we get into the actual.
Okay, and one last thing, and I'm not going to say anything else. I do think that the potential for, on a local community level, myself included, a lot of people here would be very willing to volunteer. I was going to ask you what measures have been taken outside of just saying we're going to close it down to keep it open, like on a local level. Like, hey, we've tried to form this and nobody wanted to help, or we've done this. Because
We have volunteers right now that are working in some of the areas. But the fact of the matter is that our volunteer list has been small. Most of our volunteers have been folks who went to RV camp. They come and they stay for a couple of months. we don't generally have a lot of local people who come and volunteer or sign volunteer agreements to come and help us out.
I don't think people really know that it's needed.
Yeah, I
you know.
don't think no, where do we sign up?
Yeah,
Exactly.
at the visitor center, you need to call Alan Earhart.
We'll put it on Facebook. Put it on Facebook, I'll share it, everybody.
We will post that.
Please do.
I'll actually get that later today.
Thank you.
And if you sign, I just want to put out there too, if you sign a volunteer agreement, you in effect become a core employee for some people who are worried about what happens if I get injured while I'm volunteering out there. By signing a volunteer agreement, that gives you access to workman's compensation while you are volunteering for us. Doesn't pay you anything. But
My name is Tanya Strickland, and I came here from Southwest Florida about 4 years ago. I was born there and I grew up there. LJ is what Naples was in 1950s. And if you don't think that LJ can turn into a Naples, Florida, you just wait a few more years. So I would say, get behind the court, get behind our commissioners, make this happen, that Carter's Lake can stay within our group, so that these people can't turn the lake into a Naples, Florida. Because those people have billions of dollars and they can overrule anything and substitute anything. I've seen it happen. I used to ride my horse on the beach. Now they want to charge me for it, to walk on the beach. So that was one thing. And that I just want to say, go out there, solicit. You know, I help with the Stay Active LJ group, and I know we pick up trash, but you need to put it out there so that lots of people can help. And I think they will.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? If not,
Different subject.
okay.
I want to say thanks.
You're welcome.
We have asphalt on our road. And we really, really appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad.
Now all we need is paint on the asphalt. And we're good. It comes with it.
It does. So we gotta wait till all the asphalt's down and we can get them all painted at the same time.
Yeah. And actually, you gave me a bonus. I did not expect Shenandoah to be paid. Thank you.
We'll have to bill you for that.
Only if I can build back the connection.
I'm glad it's finally finished.
You and me both. Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
It's scheduled to be striped.
I know.
Okay. Anybody else before we move
3
on?
years.
Okay, we have one item under old business. Sorry, that wasn't a quick little aside.
All right.
Discussion and possible action of life flight coverage for the citizens of GIlmer County.
Yes, sir. I have some handouts for you.
I've been doing great.
We were talking about renewing the estimate to restart the clock on that timeframe. Do you know if that's
I'm with a different provider. I'm a completely different provider than you've already heard from.
Oh, okay.
We're another hospital.
Your air methods.
We're air methods.
Instead of air meds.
That will plug a hole that was a problem before.
They said what they had to.
That will plug a hole that had
You've heard from another provider, you've not heard from us yet.
Right. The problem with the other provider was that, what if it wasn't them? and it's got coverage from them, but not, and what I'm saying is this can plug that hole.
Right, if we purchase
If we
from the
do,
company.
it gives us the option for both, because the option for one, in my opinion, is not an option. Anyway.
Fair enough. We can certainly discuss that as we get into it.
Okay, so this would be what we could do with our methods.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate it.
My name is Marcus Lindsay, and I am with Air Methods Corporation, doing business here locally as Air Life Georgia. Local to GIlmer County, we have a base just down the road in Pickens in Jasper, Georgia, and we also have a base in Blairsville, Union County, that sort of both cover your local community here, and that's part of our 10 bases throughout the state of Georgia. We're a big national company as well. We're a helicopter air ambulance. We bring a critical care team, and we handle those serious injuries and illnesses, and we transport those patients with a high level of care en route to caregivers to get them for life-saving services that aren't available here locally, such as the major hospitals in the major metropolitan areas, such as Atlanta or Chattanooga, or wherever the care is that they need. Our goal is to provide the people of the communities like here in GIlmer County the same access to medical care as those living in and around the major urban centers. And personally, along with our flight teams and alongside the great first responders here at GIlmer County, I've had the privilege to serve in this area for the better part of the last 10 years. Me personally, I was the base manager of our local base in Jasper for about 5.5 years. So I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share this. And so with us at Air Methods, we are committed to providing the highest level of clinical quality first and foremost. We're very selective about the individuals we hire, and we put them through rigorous training and ongoing over 100 hours annually of critical care training to make sure that they are at the forefront of medical care. And we put them through a very rigorous quarterly validation to ensure that they are meeting our very high standards so that we can provide the best medical care for the citizens in your community. So starting about 3 years ago, back in 2016, we took a hard look at our billing practices at Air Methods. We understand that there is a great deal of concern and fear about the cost of our services in air medical. I would venture to guess most people in the room who have probably heard media stories or just talk about loved ones or friends or somebody who received a large out-of-pocket air medical bill. I hear So
$39,700.
we recognize that back in 2016, we completely overhauled our billing department and completely changed our philosophy on the way we handle our patients after the care. I spoke to how we handle them during the care, but we're going to continue to care for those patients as long as it takes to help them navigate the process. We took on some major initiatives back in 2016 that continue to grow to this day. They're outlined in some of the handouts there. Patient advocacy, where we assign every patient, not a paying member, every patient, an expert to help them navigate from day one the billing process. We answer questions, we tell them what to do, we tell them how to fill out the forms. Step by step, we get on them in conference calls with their insurance or their third-party payer to help walk them through the process rather than leaving them to figure it out on their own. It's been literally a game changer for us. We've heard personal testimonials. Our complaints have all but almost dried up related to our bills through that. We also took on a big endeavor to go in network with as many of the major insurance providers throughout the nation, and that list continues to grow. Probably our latest one that impacts this community the most is Anthem Blue Cross of Georgia. We're in network, so we're a covered service with them. I think the county even uses Anthem Blue Cross, if I remember correct. So through all that, we have been able to get our out-of-pocket costs, the out-of-pocket costs, down. It's a very expensive service. You threw out a figure that's tens of thousands of dollars, and that is not inaccurate. The true cost to do our flights, we have to charge generally tens of thousands of dollars. And I'll delve into a little bit of why that is in just a bit. But our goal is to minimize or eliminate the out-of-pocket piece to the patient, because that's what really hits the pocketbook, right? And we've done that. Part of that initiative on the flip side of that handout that I see right there that talks about patient advocacy and in-network is our community partnership. So this is our solution to counties and local governments who wish to provide air medical services in addition to their already emergency services. Really fits in counties like yours where access to really highly specialized care is a fairly great distance away. There is a need for our services in your community, and we work very closely, have a great relationship with your first responder community here. And so our package that covers a county-wide service that GIlmer is looking into is not a membership service. It's different. There's no upfront cost to the county. We believe it's a much fairer process. It is truly based on the out-of-pocket burden to the patients that we fly. In other words, if there's no out-of-pocket cost to a patient, the county pays nothing. And this drives the cost down to the county down substantially versus a traditional membership. I'll share with you a couple of things that may not be known because all we hear is the horror stories about how expensive it is. But for many people, and we fly everyone just the same regardless of their ability to pay. In fact, we have no idea what their ability to pay is when we accept the mission to come pick them up. For example, a patient receiving Medicaid in the state of Georgia faces zero out-of-pocket cost. Many people probably don't know that. But a Medicaid recipient pays nothing out of pocket, and we care for them just the same. And so, just right here on this chart, you'll see that the cost to the county under our plan will be zero for a Medicaid patient flown because there's no cost to that patient. We take the allowable from Georgia Medicaid, and that's all we get. So, in addition, and you can see on the handout here, I've got some 2018 transport information. This breaks down all 75 GIlmer County residents that we flew in calendar year 2018. You can see by far the largest of that group is those on Medicare. All right, 40 of the 75 are on Medicare. You can look out to the far right column. The average out-of-pocket cost to those Medicare recipients, by far and above the largest group we flew, the average out-of-pocket was only $373. So that's a little known fact as well amongst the communities that those on Medicare are really paying very little out of pocket, and that's not even us, that's federal law, CMS regulation. The Medicare pays us an allowable rate, that's all they give, and the patient is only responsible for 20% of that, and that comes to an average here in GIlmer County of $373 in 2018. That was the out-of-pocket average for the Medicare recipients. And you can see there's a further breakdown. Other government insurance, that includes things like TRICARE. You can see their average out-of-pocket was only $68. So we hear these tens of thousands of dollars, but what's truly remarkable about us is we get the out-of-pocket down, and you can see it right there. Those are numbers we stand behind for the average out-of-pocket in 2018. You can see that the most expensive two categories are the out-of-network and the self-pay, the uninsured. They face the highest out-of-pocket, but you can see the average, even with the out-of-network private insurance out to the far right, was $402. And the average out-of-pocket to those uninsured that we flew was just over $700. So this plan is much fairer, we feel, than a blanket upfront membership cost, okay? So you can see, based on that, if we saw numbers resembling the volumes we did in 2018, with roughly the same payer mix, the expected out-of-pocket obligation if the county were under that plan in 2018 would have been $32,000 in change. A fraction of what most membership programs charge. We used to, I tell people, we dabbled in memberships for a few years because at the time, it was the best solution we had to offset the out-of-pocket costs. We no longer offer a membership program, but frankly, and I think we can back it up, you just don't need it with us under the membership program, all right? But we also understand that, this is still real money, and that counties who really rely on our services want to provide that service to their citizens at no out-of-pocket cost. And this is where the community partnership comes in. So, again, just to clarify, this is an expected payment. That figure could fluctuate based on the volumes. We flew more patients, that would be a different figure. If the payer mix were to shift to more out-of-network, more self-pay versus so on and so on, that number could shift. We wouldn't expect any major fluctuations on an average year. We don't typically see massive volume increases. Like I said, I've been working your area for the better part of the last 10 years. in the areas, in those years that we were the primary servant to Gilmer County, or one of the primaries, we never saw any major shifts. So because that's an expected amount and could fluctuate, we also offer an annual cap. The absolute maximum out of pocket to Gilmer County, if they were to sign our agreement for a community partnership, would be less than $77,000. Again, substantially less than most membership programs. So that is what we offer. Our goal is to care for the patients during and after transport, drive those out-of-pocket costs down, and we've been able to pass that savings along to you. We currently have two other counties in North Georgia and one in Western North Carolina that are under this very program right here. We actually changed them from a previous membership to this new community partnership model. And we just went through renewed earlier this year, and the feedback I've gotten is everybody is happy with it. We feel like it's going to be substantially lower costs to the county as well. Some other key differences to our community partnership program versus the membership. Some of the membership programs out there do not provide full coverage to the citizens. They don't provide coverage to the uninsured. The uninsured, often maybe the most vulnerable financially, still receive a bill, not with us. The county pays a cap of $700, and I don't think I specified that earlier. Those two highest out-of-pocket categories, the out-of-network private insurance and the self-pay, those are capped at $700 per transport. So there's a per transport cap, and there's also an annual cap, a total max. But we're only going to charge you what's fair, based on what we fly out of your county. So that's what we pass along to the county. We cover everybody, uninsured or not, regardless of their ability to pay. And this coverage extends beyond the boundary of the county. So if you were traveling in an area and you needed our services outside of Gilmer County, and if we were the provider to provide that for you, you'd still be covered. If this is the program that Gilmer County wanted to pay, the out-of-pocket for their citizens. So I'd love to answer some questions about that.
I think you've answered my questions.
I have a few.
Great.
So what happens if an Air Methods helicopter is not available?
Okay, so if it was rolled to a different provider, and I'm glad you brought this up, it brings to something that I also like to share. So currently we have an agreement with your sheriff's office who oversees 911 for air medical dispatch. We call it a one-call agreement, where right now we automatically identify the closest helicopter, regardless of whose name's on the side of it. For any time a request for an air medical helicopter comes through Gilmer County 911, our team at our comm center identifies whoever's closest, be it us, be it our competitor, and we roll that to them, the closest one. And we're absolutely happy to do that. We feel like it's giving the patient the quickest access to care possible. And the county, from what I understand, has been happy with that program as well. To answer your question specifically, if it's not us, then it is not covered under this plan. So, and that's the same with, as far as I know, most of the other membership plans out there.
And then my next question is, how many helicopters do you have? And what is?
Right, so that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So we have our base in Jasper, Georgia, which I know from many years of experience flying out of that and being the lead of that base right there, is an 8-minute flight to right here, town center of LJ. Average 8-minute flight, plus liftoff time, of course. So, and then our next closest base is our Blairsville, Georgia base, which is actually, there's a tiny sliver which they are the closest provider to Gilmer County. So those are our two closest. We also, here in North Georgia, we also have a base over in Habersham County in Cornelia at the airport over there. We have one down in Kennesaw as well. And then we have several more throughout the state, Griffin, Covington, a little bit further away that probably wouldn't get up this way as often. Mm-hmm. But we have those two really close to Gilmer, and then we have a couple of really great backup options.
And then how many helicopters is that? How many are we talking that come from?
Four helicopters that respond to Gilmer. One helicopter that responds to Gilmer often, mainly our Jasper, they would be your primary. A very close second would be our Blairsville ship, and then the two next backups to both of them would be our Habersham County and our Kennesaw ship in Pike County at the McCullough Airport. So we have several coverage options, with the county.
And then may I ask what the other two counties are? Is that? Can I ask what?
Oh,
the
sure,
two
that's
is?
public,
Sure.
absolutely. Union County and Towns County.
Okay.
Union County is the home to our Blairsville ship, and Towns County as well. We also have a community partnership with Clay County, North Carolina, which is just over the line from the Towns and Union area. Over there. Have great relationships with their first responders, their hospitals, and their county leaders as well. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, you're talking about the out-of-pocket for the county that they would pay. Would that then be billed to the patient?
Now, what we're talking about is the county trying to initiate a service for the citizens of the county whereby if there is a need for, to be airlifted, that they would not have the out-of-pocket. It would be a service provided by the county.
Now, I will say that we still will have to, you will receive the full benefit of our patient advocate. We're still going to have to engage the patient and or the family to work through their insurance billing process, help all through it. We still have to collect that reimbursement from the insurance company or Medicare or Medicaid or whatever their third-party payer is. But there is no out-of-pocket cost. Whatever, if there's a balance left over, based on these figures up to the cap, that is what the county would absorb. Yes, ma'am.
If the competitor responds, what's our cost?
You would have to ask the competitor.
We've got their
For that.
proposal that I can share with you. It's a totally different scenario with that.
I mean, ballpark, are we talking something like this or like the bill I got?
No, it'd be more like that. Now, of course, the out-of-pocket for the county up front is a lot higher on that. Because that's $100 and some $1,000 up front.
So you're saying though that the county, or that the person won't be billed the $700 or the $375, and if I don't pay, you pick it up. You're just gonna pick it up and I don't even get a bill?
As I understand it, under this plan, that would be correct.
The end result would you would not pay any out of pocket. You wouldn't pay anything. Again, we're still going to have to engage you and work through with you along with your insurance company, go through the process. Because we need to be reimbursed by your insurance or your third-party payer. Your third-party payer being private insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, so on. So we would still engage you after that, but there would be no $0 out-of-pocket cost to you after that process of billing the insurance company was exhausted. Sometimes it requires an appeal and that sort of thing, but there would be $0 out-of-pocket to you.
Under this plan, whatever ultimately would have been out-of-pocket to you, the county will pick up as a service, this service we provide.
Well, considering our budget shortfall, I would suggest you bill the resident first, and then if I can't pay or whatever, then you pick it up. But these numbers aren't out of the
All of
realm
this and the other proposal is going to have to go through the budget process.
In a sense, that's what we do. Instead of billing you, we bill your insurance. We're still going to do that, and the other memberships do too. That's the only way they're still getting reimbursed by third-party payers. That's no different, that part. So we would still bill for our services to the insurance of the other payers, and we would go through the normal process of billing. Sometimes there's appeals involved to get the appropriate reimbursement for our services. Yes, yes, sir.
Do you have a model? What's your model if you sign up this county and another county in the area? What's your model for adding an additional base, additional helicopters to the services? Is there a model based on flights, covered bodies?
So typically, our model for opening a new base is circular. It's all around volume. Sure. We would just, our analysts would delve into the anticipated volume of that particular area, and a lot of that has to do with access to care. How far are you away from the major hospitals and that sort of thing. We would take all that into account. It would be an analysis, and we determine if we could do it. And
Historically, how many, have you opened 3 bases a year, 1 base a year, 1 every 4 years?
It varies. I mean, community to community, year to year. And I mean, we have open bases, and then we have also, unfortunately, had to close bases where the volume, the number of requests did not support it, with its, financially, at the end of the day.
But correct me if I'm wrong on this, though, whether or not you open a base or close a base, all those decisions would essentially have nothing to do with the agreement that you're talking about with us. I mean, it's just gonna, because you're gonna serve us, whether it's under this plan or your current plan, or whatever.
And just a little bit to speak to your point, ma'am, if there is no agreement like we have now, we have no agreement for billing with GIlmer County, we bill the patient. Our advocate goes to work for you, helps you through the process. We want to minimize or eliminate that out-of-pocket cost, but oftentimes, there is, an out-of-pocket cost associated with it. And that, if we didn't have this agreement, that would be the process now. We're going to continue to serve GIlmer County. That would not change.
And my question is, and I don't know if this is you or Keith, but how many companies are there out there serving our county?
Locally, I'll let Mr. Kazera speak.
Right now, there are 2.
Okay.
You have Air Methods, and then you have, I believe, I'm not sure, the technical name is Life Force.
They do business as Life Force. Their parent company is called MedTrans.
MedTrans, okay.
And they're affiliated with us.
Right. So those are the 2, and you spoke, I believe it was last month, with Life Force.
Which is also Air Med.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Air Med.
That is their
I
membership.
just want to make sure there weren't more than 2. but there were
That's why I'm saying this, if we decided to do it, we plug it all, because
Right.
one of my complaints, the other one was,
Right.
we're only giving half coverage.
That's correct.
So does the county not have an agreement with anybody right now?
No, ma'am, we do not.
And I know like Life Force, they offer, any individual can tap into their program at any time, so it's not like you can't, any individual can come to them. Do you guys offer the same?
No, ma'am, we used to, and that's sort of the tagline on is no membership required for us, because our goal is to take care of everyone, not just those paying customers. To take care of everyone, to help minimize that out-of-pocket.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
for being here.
Thank you so much, appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir, thank you. All right, so our next item is going to be discussion and possible action of a lease or cooperative management of property from the Corps of Engineers. I have a couple of questions, and I want you to start off with. In terms of the bike trails, first of all, how will the seasonal closure affect the bike trails? And, okay, so those aren't affected by the
They're not
seasonal
affected by
closure.
seasonal closure.
So then, if there was a permanent closure, they would still not be
They would not be
affected?
affected.
Okay. And I assume, it's my understanding that this is not just Carter's Lake, this is something that's going to be pretty prevalent all over the country for core properties and core lakes.
Correct.
Okay. What sort of, I know we've discussed this, but I want to get into a little bit more depth with it. What sort of time frames are we looking at if we're looking at permanent closures? What?
I am anticipating that if we receive any other fund, I will have to close one area in 2022. That's one area.
One recreation area.
One recreation area,
Completely.
and I'm not talking, like, we've been talking with you all in terms of Dome Mountain Recreation Area, meaning that they use and the campground. That is not the case when I'm talking about closures. I would, just as an example, I would close Dome Mountain Day Use or Dome Mountain Campground, not the Dome Mountain Recreation Area. So it would be.
Not the program.
Correct. That's just an example of how a closure would work. It would not be, if we closed, if I had to make a closure in Woodring, it would not be all of Woodring. It would just be a portion of Woodring that would make up the shortfall.
So, would it be accurate then if I were to say that we can take our time on this. We really don't have to do anything that way.
You are correct. But we also don't encourage waiting until it happens
Oh, no,
to make
no.
a change.
No, but if we're looking at, let's just say 2022, I mean, if we were to do something a year from now, in 2020 or even in 2021, we could still achieve the same result.
Yes, yes.
So I'm thinking this is just not something we have to rush into here.
I certainly don't think rushing into it. I don't want to do that. However, to say that it wouldn't impact the lake or its visitors to wait for a year or two is, I don't think, really fair or totally truthful, because with your budgets that you have now, you're already having to cut to close seasonally earlier and earlier.
Correct.
Whereas if the county were able to cooperatively manage some of those recreation areas, then we could keep those seasonal. I mean, we can decide the seasonal
Yeah.
opening and closing, the seasonal dates, and then keep those open longer. Whereas where I see now, they're getting shorter and shorter for you guys.
Correct.
So it is going to affect everything, usage, economy, everything from, by closing those.
Will there be other seasonal closures this year?
Not this year, but that doesn't mean that when the pass back, which is the money that, our budgets are done 2 years in advance. So when the president's budget comes back to me for fiscal year 21, which starts in October of 2020, it does not mean that I won't receive a cut there as well, because I have no idea probably until June or July what is going to come back. And that's when I have to start thinking about how I'm going to manage any cut that comes back.
Right.
And I want to point out that it's not just seasonal closures that we're looking at. We have made changes at the project as well as how we manage our ranger staff. I've not been able to hire positions. I've gone down from 3 administrative employees to 1. I have 1 administrative employee now. So it's not that we're just making changes in the function or the operations of the park. We're making changes everywhere.
But now that won't change even if we come to an agreement.
Correct, that will not change.
But then some of the other changes you had to make were fewer trash pickups.
Correct.
And things like that. So
Correct.
that affects the quality of the lake around
Correct.
it. And so,
Yeah, so we have made changes as to the frequency of cleaning, whereas we might have cleaned 5 times in campgrounds, now we can have that down to 3 times. And in the wintertime, the recreation areas that will remain open, those restrooms can only be cleaned once a week. Down from 2 or 3 times a week.
I think that the Corps and Oliver, they worked very hard on giving us some numbers that we were able to look through. I do believe that we are much closer being in the black, not merely, in the red, and sharing. The cooperative management really entices me, that I think is an ideal way to go, because those monies collected, as we've stated before, the monies collected from day use and annual fees right now go back to the Treasury. But if they were collected, if we did a cooperative management, those day use fees and annual fees could stay here in those areas and help the county fund to do the maintenance that we're talking about.
The revenue could offset the expenditure for the portion that the county is responsible for as part of the cooperative joint management agreement.
Right. And when I hear that the season, which I know it's not your fault, but that worries me for also even the gate closures. I mean, if I'm coming up to visit Carter's Lake and I see a gate closed, I'm gonna be like, wow, okay, well, I'm not gonna come back because I'm gonna not, I'm guessing there'll be a sign posted that there are other entries on that gate, but how many times are they gonna come back when they, if you're like, I don't know if they're gonna be open or closed or when or what, I think it will hurt those tourists, visitors coming to enjoy the lake. And then I do think that it's gonna influence property value for our property owners around the lake by having those shorter seasons and the unsurety of, just having it in question of if it's gonna be open, are they gonna be open, or are they gonna be closed? And whether it's temporarily or permanently. I think that it is absolutely, especially when recreation, we know how important it is. Now, I've heard that that's great clarification that of the trails will not be affected either way in closure, but certainly our boaters, kayakers, paddleboarders, fishing, on and on, swimming. I've gone to all of the recreation areas and always see families swimming, or kids swimming, or adults, or whoever using the lake. So I just hate it is like we've heard before, but I completely agree, it's an inexpensive way to recreate for our citizens, and I just, the thought of it being closed more or shortening that season, I think is a real shame, and I think we'll see the impact economically as well as really a detriment to our citizens. And I'm not looking to rush into this, Charlie, I'm really not. I do see that we would be able to allow more of a continuous flow to keep the lake and the recreation areas open if we were to work out a cooperative management agreement. The campsites specifically, it's not especially, they're all important to me in my mind, but the campers, I know there's a real need out there for folks to have campsites. I've also spoken to surrounding counties and counties in our kind of same population and budget, and they really believe their lakes have been an asset, both economically and providing recreation for. So, I don't know, I just think if we wait, I think that's really gonna hurt or impact. I think also just the negative comment, the unsurety of the lake itself will impact, not the lake itself, but the recreation sites itself will hurt. Both our visitors and our citizens. And also, we are in a little bit of a season of trying to figure out where exactly and when we'll come up, build our pool. This would give our own residents, as well as visitors, a longer season if we could work something out for 2020 for them to have a longer season of swimming at Harris Branch or,
What time frame did you have in mind?
Time frame like seasonal recreation?
To actually come up with something.
I would like to move forward with discussions. There's some things that I'm unsure of. There is a group called Cradle of Forestry that helps other lakes and camp reservations and there's something, I've not had the time to really look into that, as well as reservation system. We would need that pretty quickly. I have not had the time to look into Reservation America to find out exactly the ins and outs of how quickly, what kind of upfront money, if that's an easy transition. And the fact that, like you weren't sure of until this morning, that we at any time have a 90-day out if we cooperatively manage. If we get in there and we find like this is costing us a whole lot more than we planned on, it's not working out, we can opt out by giving a 90-day notice as well as they can for us. So there is an out with the cooperative management. The lease, not so much. We do have a few more lease freedoms with the lease, but the cooperative management side of it is a little more, we have some flexibility there.
I absolutely want to see that all of these sites remain open. And I want to give the impression that I'm opposed to that. I have had in my mind an about face in terms of a lease. As I understand it, if we do the cooperative management and at some point down the road we decide that we'd like to try the lease, we can still do that. So we're not necessarily closing any doors. I think I had mentioned in our special meeting the possibility of leasing Harris Branch and cooperative management for the rest. At the very least, I would change that now to say just cooperative management.
I'd actually agree with that. When looking at the numbers for Harris Branch specifically, it is the one that's in the red by the numbers that the Corps gave us. And it would take work for us to figure out and plan and create. Now, not that we couldn't do that, but we could also still, now we do lose the benefit of having any kind of food truck or anything out there if we do the cooperative management. We can put,
Well, now, I thought we could still do the food truck and so forth as long as any money that came in from that was still utilized in that same location.
No, you have to get a commercial concession lease to put a food truck in an area that is cooperatively managed. Because I support, under a cooperative agreement, you're still operating under the Corps' regulations, and the Corps cannot have a concession.
Well, a concession to me was important if we were doing a lease.
Yes.
What we're talking about now, and in that regard, we were thinking in terms of positive cash flow, actually being able to get a return from these places. I don't think we're really talking about that now. I think what we're talking about now is just to make sure that they stay open.
yeah, I mean, I do think there's probably potential to do that. I just think it takes a lot more effort. That maybe if we get our feet wet a little bit with cooperative management area, by helping them cooperatively manage the sites, then we can decide later. This looks like we kind of figured out what we're doing.
There's still a lot of things we have to look into. You've got questions you had an opportunity to look into there. I don't see making a commitment in this month. I think if we make a commitment as early even as February or March, we can accomplish the exact same thing if we make a commitment tonight.
The only thing I see in the difference of that is that most of the camper money, your RV camping, most of those folks are gonna start registering and for their camp space actually
They can
today.
make reservations 6 months in advance. So even if you waited until February, you would have to find a way in your, in the reservations to accommodate people who have already paid for those campsites.
With the exception of those locations that are closed for the season, that's going to be the case anyway. Is it not?
Well, the campgrounds, they close for the season anyway. And so starting today, people could start making reservations for when the campgrounds open, at least for Doll Mountain. But the problem is going to be that once we hit Memorial Day, those sites are all reserved up so that you would not be collecting any of those fees because they would have already been paid into the treasury.
So the campsites close seasonally anyway?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes, except for the, well, yes, all of them, even the primitive ones.
So then, when we're talking about the one that's just closed for the season, what we're really talking about is the boat route part?
Correct. Correct. The campgrounds close seasonally as the regular course. It's just that Woodbridge Campground is going to have a shorter season than Dawn.
It just seemed that a lot of the discussion that went on was regarding campgrounds. But now, I'm hearing that the campgrounds will be closing anyway.
Correct.
But you could extend the season. You have that ability.
Yeah, you would have the ability to extend the season for the campgrounds.
And the
collect the
other
revenue.
If the,
Yeah,
um,
and lifelong.
if the folks, visitors have already made their reservations, that money has gone off to the treasury. And then we come along and do the cooperative management later on.
Yeah.
We've missed that income, and we still are responsible to cover for utilities and all for those that will be visiting. So that's the only window that, and that's a
It will take
decent
longer
amount.
for you to, it will take a little bit longer for you to recoup your initial investment.
That's where I just hate to miss that income part, especially going in hoping to break even.
And I hate that as well. I just feel like we're rushing into it. Given the timeframes that we have to look at this, and I understand about the reservations and all. And I'm just as adamant as everybody here that these locations not closed. I don't want this to be, Charlie didn't want to keep them open. I just think that we need to plan this better, and I don't see that we really have a plan. I think we're reacting to a situation that we can take more time on, even if it's just a couple more months. The bottom line for me is that I'm not ready to make a commitment on that. And,
Well, we certainly want you to be successful.
yeah,
So take all the time you need.
thank you, that's, yes, ma'am.
How many employees do you envision it would cost to do this? How many employees?
That's my problem. We haven't looked at that.
Let's see.
We haven't really gotten into that, and that's what I mean when I say we haven't made a plan. We need to determine just exactly how many employees it's gonna be. We need to decide, is it gonna be 20 employees, are we gonna retain the contractor? There's so many things that we need to decide before we jump into this. Now, granted, we can jump in tomorrow night and still have all these discussions, because ultimately I think we're gonna wind up jumping in anyway, because we do not want these places to close. But I would rather, even if it's just another 2 or 3 months, but whatever time it takes, I would rather us have a plan that here's how many employees we think we're gonna need. Is this gonna be a new department? Is it gonna be an enterprise? There's just a lot of, what are we gonna do about the reservation system?
And I completely agree with you, Charlie, that we don't know those answers yet. I don't think I didn't think our vote was gonna be yes or no. I thought maybe in the lines of, let's continue to move forward in discussions with the lake and then move forward into figuring out those kind of details.
Well, I think we definitely move forward in those discussions. I don't see why we need to vote for that, but if you want to vote to say we move forward with discussions, I'm all for that. I was thinking that we would be wanting to vote on whether or not to actually enter into these agreements and how we were going to do it.
No,
I just don't feel like we're ready for that.
I agree. I wasn't thinking that was what we're gonna do. We don't even know what the lease, we haven't even made those decisions of who's exactly gonna, take on what responsibility. But if we don't need to vote on it, but we continue to move forward, or we wanna vote to move forward,
We don't need a vote on it to continue to move forward. We just decided to continue to move forward. But if it would make people feel better, and if it would make people feel we're more committed, I'm perfectly fine with a vote to continue to look into it. Because we'll do that anyway.
Mary Ann, how many employees do you have maintaining the things that we would be taking over?
Well, it varies depending on the duties, but as far as cleaning in the summer, there's what, two sets of cleaners?
6 to 8. But that's for the entire project. Because we don't have employees that are assigned individual areas.
It's the contractor.
It's the staff that services the entire lake, including the powerhouse, including other operational areas that are separate from the recreation areas.
Do you have camp hosts that manage the?
Yes, we have park attendants who run the checking in people, At the campgrounds, we don't have park hosts. I know some projects have park hosts, but we don't really have a place to put them, because then that takes away from the campsites available for the public. But we do have volunteers that go out and do limb clearing, blowing leaves, pressure washing. But it really just depends on what our priorities at the moment. The contractor used to have a huge staff, and they took care of everything. But now we've had to have our volunteers start taking up some of the things that the contractor used to do. And I don't have control over how many people he sends out, because I'm only allowed to check what he's doing and tell him what I want the end result to be.
And Joanne, they did share with us numbers of those services that they use right now with us and the pricing. And so we do have an equivalent of numbers of the costs of the staffing to maintain and whether it's maintenance, picking up trash, cleaning the facilities, we have all those costs that they.
Will we be able to do it for the same money?
That's
what we need to find out. And if we can't do it for the same money, it doesn't mean we don't do it. It just means we go into it with our eyes open. One thing that I would like to address, while we're all in here together and Barbara can't beat me over the head and say, don't say it. I do read social media. I shouldn't, but I do. A lot of times, and in fact most of the time, I want to compliment you folks because the comments that you made are acknowledgeable. Most of the time when I read social media, I read something, some comment somebody makes, and I just sit there and, you know, and I'm thinking, find out something before you make a comment.
Yeah, I almost
Learn
commented the other
something
day,
about it.
but I realized it would take me 8 pages to
Well,
come. I mean, it was so off the
But one thing that I do want to address that I read, we have discussed that if we do this, my personal preference at least is to make this a separate department, not to bring it under Parks and Rec, similar to what the golf course is. There was a comment that was made that Parrish wants to create a new department out of this, and it's going to be the absolute same disaster that the golf course is. I happen to think that the golf course is one of the most success stories that this county has ever seen. You find anybody around here that will tell you that the golf course is not in the best condition it's ever been in. You won't find it. You know, they don't break even yet, they're very close, and it will happen. So the idea that if we do this, and if we bring this into its own department, it'll be a disaster like the golf course. I hope it'll be a disaster like the golf course. But that particular one really bothered me.
Well, I think sometimes that's reading other social media that they, comment off of other things that were said years ago.
It's exactly that, but that's why I say, people, if you're gonna comment on social media, find out what you're talking about. But he ran over.
So I don't know, I know we're work sessions out, but not. I don't know if it's having another work session. Once I come up with some numbers, I'd like to move forward and look into Reservation America, Cradle, or just some options for reservations, because that's one question we have.
What is the anticipated cost of that service?
I don't know, so.
Because you're going to get into a, charter requirement if you exceed a certain amount of annual expenditure, which would then require you to actually bid on those services.
Okay.
And that may be a question that could be posed back to the floor, is if they could continue to maintain a contract with that reservation system.
My understanding, they cannot.
Well, we can, but that revenue goes to the treasury.
Well,
It
I
does not
thought
go
we
to
were
county.
stepping into new territory.
We are,
with this
they
co-op,
are.
And I was thinking maybe y'all could just simply explain to your superiors that there isn't, this reservation system is really what's got me worried as the county attorney in this regard. Because, I mean, it's critical. If it fails, it doesn't work. If it succeeds, it hopefully, puts this project back into life. But since we're in what I would consider to be new territory as far as this procedure with respect to the management of property, I was kind of hoping that y'all could continue to utilize your services in that regard and just simply the county being responsible for the vendor fee. And that way it would allow the county to avoid having to subsequently hereafter, because that's a 2-month process to go bid. And if you got a co-op, you've got a 90-day termination, and then you've got a vendor that has probably an expectation that has a year built in. So if they terminate after 90 days, you're gonna have a breach of contract. And if you terminate after 90 days, they're going, there's a breach of contract possibility that's gonna occur in that scenario.
Does this not be professional services?
I don't think so. I don't think you have to have any specialized services to do a reservation system. It's just simply having to have the capability of telecommunications and everything. Yeah, I don't think it would fall underneath that.
I have engaged our headquarters, our partnership proponent at headquarters. The problem with the current reservation system is not that you can't use it, you can. The problem is that the fees at the moment cannot be returned to the county. Right now, even if you were running the campgrounds and we were continuing to use recreation.gov, those fees would go to the treasury. And so our headquarters proponent has gone to the contract representative for the Corps, because the recreation.gov is a multi-agency reservation system. And she has gone back to our COR for the contract to re-engage them to say, we're supposed to be looking into this. Now we've got people that are trying to venture into this. You have to do something now, because they've kind of been dragging their feet on how we're going to get those fees returned. So she is looking into that.
And that,
again, I don't know how long it will take.
and that's
for that to be
another
resolved.
wrinkle that needs to be developed. But if that were to be able to successfully amend their contract in that regard, I think that takes y'all out, because the reservation system really isn't a management. It's more or less just putting people in the campsites. So, the management is going to be the grounds themselves and everything of that nature.
Yeah, but we want that money back.
Well,
Right.
certainly, but again,
Your only other option is to do it as a walk-up only with no reservations. That's the only other option.
That's not all.
That's not-
And the other, the great thing about the day use fees and the annual pass fees, that's a different company that's providing, that's the credit card machines and those that they've gone to. So that's an easy transition. That money just gets dropped right into whatever account is set up.
Especially the accounts were changed.
Right, so we're really just
To where
talking
that's
about
all we
camping. But there are a couple of other counties that, like I said, that I spoke to that are using smaller reservations. They're not using Reservation America. So I have not checked into that, but I hear your point on cost and all of that.
This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say we need a plan. I have questions still that really can't be, we don't have an immediate answer for it. You have questions. When we actually sign on the dotted line, I don't want to have a question in my mind. I want us, and in fact, I want us to already have separately our plan for just exactly how we're going to do this. How we're going to organize it, what it's going to take, all that. And we can get that all together. And we're not necessarily talking about 21 or 22. I just threw that out there because that goes with kind of the days. If we can do it by December, great. I don't think we can. But, and again, I'm committed. I want to keep these places open. I just want to know what we're doing. I'd love to see how close is that that linear contract to what we would actually be looking at. And we had a sample, I think, it was from linear. We had a sample.
The lease, that was for the lease.
Okay, that was for the lease. I'd like to see. I'd like to
Nobody
see
else
what
has
we-
done this cooperative management agreement, we're this is new authorities, and we're the first one.
So
The others have
could they
not.
come up with an agreement for us that we would normally sign, but instead we can look at first?
I have already provided a copy of a draft agreement, to Carlene. You can look at that.
Is it
Well, what I-
management or is it the
It-
lease?
No, the cooperative management.
What I'm asking though is, how close is that to what we can actually expect?
That is the template that we have been told we will use it.
Okay.
There won't be any changes to it except for the annex, which would be our division of responsibilities and your plan, your operations plan.
Okay, so fine, we just need to, we have some planning we need to do.
Yeah.
I have a question. Would it be possible for the county to enter into a cooperative agreement fairly quickly, just covering the day use portion of Woodring to keep that would able to keep the boat ramp open, and then later add or create a new agreement that would include the campground, since there's a lot more issues, it's a lot more complicated. So they could fairly quickly do that.
Correct.
Well,
We can do that.
let me ask you this, would it be possible to open just the boat ramp at Woodring as sort of a good faith gesture while we're negotiating?
I'd have to go back and look at our numbers.
If we can get a slew of volunteers
If we
to
could
maintain
get
it.
a slew of
You
volunteers,
got-
yeah.
Okay, guys.
I got an orange vest on.
Here's what I'll do, when we get back to the office after the meeting, I will post on Facebook contact information for us. If anybody's interested in volunteering, please call that number and ask for that ranger, and we will start a roster of folks that are interested in volunteering for that.
On Facebook under,
Our Carter's Lake Corps of Engineers page, we've got a page just for.
That's on Facebook.
If you don't have access to Facebook, I can give you our direct telephone number if you have a pen handy. It's 706-334-2248.
If it's on Facebook, I can find it.
Yeah, we've got a Facebook page.
If we were to do, like Luann just mentioned, a cooperative management just at the day use fees, just at the day use, that's just the money that the day use, is going into, then, but then we would still need to work out maintenance and those other things. So,
I really don't want to do a cooperative management of just that.
yeah,
If-
well,
If we can have that just open with the volunteers as good faith while we negotiate the entire ball of wax, I think
But if
that
you do cooperative, you get the money from the day.
we also have the responsibility though of managing it. And that's the part where we haven't discussed how many people we're gonna hire, what we're gonna have to do. If it can be opened without that, while we try to negotiate the entire thing, that, for me, that would work better. And I know we wouldn't be getting money just yet, but, wouldn't have responsibility just yet either.
It probably wouldn't be a whole lot of money, like in November, December. Most of the local, or a lot of the local fishermen and people that regularly use that in the winter probably already have an annual pass or a lifetime pass.
But rather than us trying to get together a plan for the entire thing, we've got to push that aside and do sort of an emergency plan for just this one thing. I'd rather just address the whole thing, particularly if we can get it open, get the boat around open in the meantime anyway.
Commissioner, I had a question with regards to the fee schedule for campgrounds. If we were to continue to use the book.gov or whatever that site was, as Mr. Jones mentioned, would we then be locked into your fee schedule, or would the county be able to change the fee schedule? Will we have the flexibility to change that fee schedule for campsites?
you can change the fee schedule, but because it's cooperatively managed, the county would have to do an analysis of all the campgrounds within a 50-mile radius, and we cannot, you couldn't charge less than the average, but you could certainly charge more than the average, and it's done in a 2-year. So you just would have to report what you're charging, what your fee schedule is gonna be for the next 2 years. It doesn't mean you're locked in for 2 years, because you have to provide one every year for 2 years,
And
so.
that's what our requirement is, and how we set fees, and that same standard will apply to the county.
That if we continue to use your booking.
No, regardless.
No, regardless.
Regardless. So even if you had your own booking site, the county would still have to do the 2-year analysis and then report what they're going to set their fees as. And it's all based on performance, relatively.
Yeah, and that's because it's a cooperative management. If we leased it, we could do whatever we
Correct.
please.
Do y'all have some ideas to where you are with respect to the distinction between lease and cooperative management? I mean, I understand you kind of.
I had questions, but I think I'm pretty well squared away now.
Or is it still the same plan, 4 and 1?
My feeling right now is we don't lease right away. We go for 5 cooperative and.
Or 4 cooperative. It was 3 and 1. So it would just be
Oh, I
4.
thought it was 4. 3 and 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dahlman.
Well, that helps,
Hairspray.
that helps.
Well,
Knowing that
in
we're
any event, it would be a total cooperative management, no lease. And with the idea that ideally at some point, we could identify one that we may want to go ahead and convert to a lease. And as we continue with the cooperative management, if we can move these others into a position where we felt that we could safely lease them and at least not lose water money, you know, we can, who knows, at some point, however many years down the road, maybe we've got all leases in place, but I can't start with a lease right now in my mind.
And I
Well,
wanted
it
to
makes it easier to move forward, just looking at it nicely and cooperative management.
Someone had spoken earlier, I believe it was the lady who was sitting right here, about other, like the state. The announcement that I had spoken about prior in one of our earlier meetings, we have to put out an announcement that we're looking for partners to cooperatively manage. And it lists the types of agencies, which are all governmental agencies. That announcement is going to go out either today or tomorrow. So if the state or if LJ City were to come back and we can cooperate with more than one party in an area. I do not anticipate that happening, but just so that you all are aware they are, but there is going to be a press release.
If the state were to come back and say we want them, my whole thing is I want them to stay open. If the state's willing to do it, I'm perfectly willing to back off. But, yeah, that wouldn't turn down any help cheerfully.
And we prefer cooperative management because again, both agencies, both of our entities have an interest in maintaining what we currently have and we want to remain rural. The fear is if we lease them out, if I can't get another governmental agency to want to cooperatively manage or even lease the area, then I have to put it out to bid. And let's say that somebody like even Linear Islands wants to come in and do a commercial concession lease. They could, and I don't have as much control over what they end up doing because you know they want to make money. And so there's always the fear that when I retire in 3 years, 5 months, about 10 days, that the next manager might not have the same vision for the project as I have, and they might be more willing to approve some crazy scheme that you wind up with a party code or Linear Islands, and that is not what we want for this area. It's not what I want, it's not what you all want, it's not what anybody in here wants.
So are you saying somebody like KOA could bid on it?
Yes.
Only if we don't decide.
Only if the state or the county, the city decides not to, because the governmental entities have first right of refusal. But in order to keep it open and not close an area, that would be my next option, would be to go out and put out a commercial recreation.
And there are private
Correct.
people out there who are already expressing their opinion about let us private citizens buy.
Yes, I saw several of those
And,
comments, yeah.
you know, we would have another
Yes.
hotel, yeah, somebody else mentioned, well, if we could get a hotel on the lake, look at that. That's not what GIlmer County wants. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, we definitely don't want that.
Okay, anything else on this? Yes, sir.
I would like to know, according to the Corps, when the anticipated closing as of this minute of Woodring is going to take place. I went and saw the gate that was installed. And I went, when I heard that it was going to close, I went on the Corps website. I looked in newspapers and I didn't see, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see anything telling the general public when those gates will be closed. And I think it's important that the public, that we need to know if those gates are going to be shut, when they're going to be shut. I mean, that's the Sunshine Laws and Freedom of Information Act. We need to, the general public needs to know. So did I miss it? Did you put it on a website, or did you put an announcement in the paper that the gates were going to be closed at a certain time? Because I'm just trying to help create hard feelings and conflict, because people, I tell you, the fisherman I talked to yesterday at Woodland Branch, and I told him what was going on, and he said, I cannot believe this. He said, I saw the gates. He said, I'd be willing to pay an additional fee, you know, to get in here. But he said, I didn't know anything about it. So am I missing something, or did you inform the public? Have you put anything in the paper or anything to tell people that the gates are going to be closed?
We had posted to our Facebook account about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, on the seasonal schedule, and we're readying a press release right now.
What about the
Should be
newspapers,
released this week.
local newspapers?
Yeah, local newspapers. But what we're gonna end up doing with Woodring is the time period, the seasonal closure was scheduled for November 1st. And the time between now and then, with what we had talked about earlier, with getting a volunteer roster, identifying, you know, exactly what it is that we need to do, basically coming up with a plan between now and November to address it through the winter time and ensure that we don't have any concern doing that.
If you keep it closed for that long a period of time, and the campgrounds, and it's not being used, and it's not being maintained, then at the end of that time when you were to reopen, it would appear there's going to be a lot of cleanup and a lot of maintenance in order to get the place ready for people coming in, rather than if you just
There's a lot of cleanup. There's a lot of cleanup and maintenance for keeping it open too. The issue that we have in terms of closing areas and what we're absolutely trying to avoid, which precipitated our seasonal schedule this year, is that if we close an area permanently, it's unbelievably difficult to open that back up again.
Exactly.
If we close an area permanently, more than likely, we would not even be able to enter into a joint management agreement. On our side in the future, lease would be the only option if that would open back up again. Because the single hardest thing for us to do is when we permanently close an area, is to open it back up again. So that's why we look at the seasonal closures with keeping that in mind for the entire project, that if we close an area, it's going to be hard to open it back up.
Well, I would like to volunteer to go to Woodring and to clear some of the limbs and trees that are overhanging the ramp, because my pontoon boat.
Okay, great.
Because I thought, well, maybe I should take a saw down there and a handsaw and do it, but I thought, no, if I do that, I'll be going to federal prison for cutting trees.
Not if you sign a volunteer agreement.
If I sign a volunteer agreement that I want to specifically do something at Woodring with your approval, would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the limbs are hanging over, and it could tear
I mean, it's ridiculous. We've got two types of volunteer agreements. We've got volunteer agreements that last for a duration of time, to where we sign a volunteer up and they may be here for a year, and it covers that entire year. We have volunteer agreements that are just for specific
And you got
work activities, just
I hate
like
to be
that.
nitpicking, but you got a median right when you go into Woodring, and I've busted a boat tire, and a lot of other people have, and there's like pieces of the curb sitting up there, and it's like almost like a square that you have to pull your boat up and go left to go around this thing. And I've talked to you guys about it, and the curb and stuff's still sitting there. They need to cut that curb down where it's more user-friendly to be able to have access to it. I mean, I'd be willing to go out and do that, but I don't want to do anything. It kind of goes back to, if you do a lease, are you going to be able to, or work with y'all cooperatively, and you see something needs to be done physically to the property, what kind of?
Yeah, the last thing that we want is to have folks bust their tires on infrastructure like that. So if there's stuff that we can do, whether it's a volunteer type activity or maybe it's a joint activity between volunteers and us, to make it better to where that doesn't happen again, we can do it, and we will do it.
Right.
We just, need to look at exactly what we want to do and how we want to do it and what we want the outcome to be in doing it, so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, what I would suggest is that we, for the time being, make a discussion and possible action on this. This is a standard part of our agendas. Y'all are always welcome to come back, but you wouldn't necessarily have to for the next, while we're just discussing what plan we put in place.
If you guys have any other questions, or if there's any other information or data that you think would be helpful, let us know, let me know. That's it.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you, but all of you have put some numbers together that really helped us understand the costs and all that, and I know that took a lot of work, so I appreciate that first. And the relationship that we already have with the county and the Corps is very strong and positive in this community, and certainly that's rare in some communities, so I appreciate it.
I think that's one of the reasons that we're sitting down talking about it now, because we want to prevent the possibility of something happening 2 to 3 years down the road that an area closes and we can't reopen it. And we understand that and have the relationship that we have, and being able to sit down and talk about that.
Could you share that phone number one more time?
Yes, ma'am, 706-334-2248.
Okay, anything else on this particular topic? If not, next item of business to be appointment of a member to the Building Authority Board. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably a good idea. Just take these.
Give me the sheet.
Okay, if y'all ready, we'll go ahead and get started back. Appointment of a member to the Building Authority Board. I will be nominating Bill Craig for that. That works for y'all. Bill Craig. And he is willing to do it. Fine, did you have anybody?
I did not.
Adopting the first reader to amend the chapter titled Animal Control Ordinance of the GIlmer County Code. I think the only changes that, in the end, that we made there was just a couple of places where we changed the wording from that the animal control could destroy an animal to saying that destroy or otherwise dispose of. For my own purposes, I'm fine with voting to continue that in November.
Go
We're on,
When you say,
two.
To the second, and this the second reader?
First
read. Well, we have to vote to continue it on, right, that's what I'm talking about.
I have a question on the animal control thing. In the part that you've added under public nuisance, where you've changed it to now, it's unlawful for any owner to have an animal in his or her care that's been considered a public nuisance. So if your dog, you've been kept it chained outside and it's barked all the time and the neighbors got fed up with it, if you finally decided then to keep it inside and you're no longer going to chain it outside, you've made it unlawful to continue owning that dog.
Say that again, please.
If you kept your dog chained outside on a runner or whatever, and it just barks all the time like some of them do, and the neighbors kept complaining and they keep sending someone out there, and it's now declared a public nuisance, if you decide though you love your dog, you're just going to keep it inside, you won't chain it out anymore, since it's been declared a public nuisance, it's unlawful now for me to keep it in my care.
Well, that's really kind of not what we intended there.
Yeah, and I was looking at the definition of public nuisance, I'm not sure.
Well, it says unreasonably annoyed humans
Yeah,
barking.
see, that's where I got that, I read the definition and it said, because that's kind of one of the biggest problems is the ones that just keep barking and barking and barking.
And I guess in that scenario, I know a warning would probably be most appropriate to be issued by the animal control officer. And, if the owner continues to disregard the warning, there's got to be some teeth to it. And if the owner does continue to disregard the warning, and that, it's not being written specifically for any particular instance, but what we're trying to do is add a little bit more teeth to that one particular section, public nuisance section.
Who issues those warnings?
Animal control officer. I guess.
Then, before they declare it,
Yes.
whatever determines 3 warnings makes it a public nuisance, that third warning needs to say that if, or the second warning, if
Yeah.
you get a third one, you can't, I mean.
I can add something in there to issue a warning the first time. I don't know that all the categories would warrant a warning the first time, but maybe so.
No, I think maybe just this one, because the others, in my mind, are serious enough that if they occur, endangers life or health of other animals or persons and so forth, I wouldn't want to be restricted to having to give a warning.
What about chases vehicles? I mean, you didn't even know your dog chased vehicles, so the neighbor tells you that your daring dog, chases my car every day.
What about if I just add it to the animal control officer shall have the discretion to issue a warning and then make that decision?
Yeah, how would that be?
We've got a lot of officers have those discretions, so let me add that to it.
Because most animal control officers aren't mean people, I mean, they deal with animals, so they would understand that you may not it's like some people don't know their dog barks.
Nah, I don't know about that.
Now, some people don't.
They don't know it?
I mean,
They
if you're not
actually-
home, and.
Their dog, you're deaf to your dog. I'm deaf to my cat.
I understand that.
Have the same situation at 250 houses, et cetera. I don't have a problem with dogs, or a problem with the owners.
I'm deaf to my wife.
Who probably takes wonderful care of her dog, doesn't have a problem with it anyway.
No, you're right, I was gonna say, that went right over her head.
You ain't putting that off on me, you still gotta ride home.
Okay.
Where are you gonna add that, David?
I'm going to probably put it down there in that section 37. I just closed it up, but I'll send you a version 2 of that. This may not be this afternoon. maybe in the morning before I get there, or this evening.
He's got a picture today.
No,
It's gotta catch up.
yes, yes, yes.
I don't know about that. Anything else on that, Jolene? Okay. All right, then, the next item. Adopting the first reader to amend the chapter titled Commercial River Outfitting Ordinance of the Gilmer County Code. Any comment on that?
Generally, I'm gonna be a thorn in your side on that one.
Okay,
I'm really, I did not vote for changing this. I think the bans are the way to continue. If we want to change it so the wording is for those that are using public access, which takes out Kusawati, but I think the ban is done in the right way, and the right way with coding the way it was written. I think y'all spent a lot of time on this, and
well, the situation that we're in is such that if you're not supportive of it, there's no point in even really discussing it further, except that if you're okay with taking Kusawati out, I would like to continue with that.
completely, because I think if it just reads that it's using public.
Okay, it'll need to get back another month, I'll have to fix that draft, and that draft's
Okay.
gonna have a lot of changes again, so
So
that won't be on the next.
we'll keep that one back in.
So all y'all are gonna do then, to
Take out Kusawati.
is to take out Kusawati. Or is it specifically Kusawati, or those outfitters that are using private put-in and private?
Anybody that uses a private, that does not utilize a public.
How about the change of the title? I gave y'all two different versions. One was commercial river outfitting, and the other one was public river outfitting. I kind of wanted to draw it back to public river so that it kind of made sense with, hey, if you're a private put-in, private take-out, then you're not going to be governed.
I think public river outfitting is a better title because places like Kusawati can still be deemed a commercial river outfitter, but they're
Right.
not utilizing any public facilities.
Right. I'll go with public too as well.
Out of curiosity, why do you believe the bans are better than the one-time payment?
Because I think, well, one-time payment, even they're paying for the bans.
Well, no, the bans were, doing away with the bans was in conjunction with having them pay one time.
Yeah, I think it's not a matter of that, I believe the bans are a great source for us to see who is using each outfitter and to have better tracking of it.
Okay, anything else on that one? So we'll need to back that one up. And that's fine. We have time.
When is that public hearing? Is it 4:30? Is it 4:30 or 5:00? Because that we can, if it's the 4:30, you can just post cancellation.
4:30.
We can post a cancellation and not have to show it till 5:00.
That works.
Yeah.
Adopting the first reader to the chapter titled Broadband Ready Community Ordinance of the Gilmer County Code. This was the, essentially their sample ordinance that was edited to make it a Gilmer County specific. So, any comments on that, or are we good with that?
I think we're great with that.
Y'all just need to identify the single point of contact.
Okay.
What is the purpose of it? What are they going to do?
This ordinance,
Yeah.
really, it's one of those future kind of things. If we can be recognized as a broadband ready community, in the event that somebody actually starts allocating some grant money to people to come in and build up the rural broadband, we could qualify for that, whereas without that, we either would not qualify or would be at the bottom of the list. But it makes no immediate impact other than that. Okay, resolution to adopt the updated community work program and capital improvements element for GIlmer County and the cities of LJ and East LJ. I'm
Straightforward, yes.
straightforward. And Joanne, have you got that yet, or we still owe you that?
Yeah, I don't have that one.
Okay, we'll get you that. That's the one we were gonna email everybody.
I don't know about that. I actually thought we did this last month, but in a special call, so I'm a little, but I know it needs to be done, so if we didn't, then it might be just because I've seen it.
I thought we actually had to do it in this meeting.
Well, either way, we're doing it. It is part of, it has to be done for the joint comprehensive plan. It's one of those that's part.
But we can get doing something. And going forward, let's put all these things on the website. We just make a little thing for pending ordinance changes or whatever you want to title it. And ask the lady to go ahead and put these things under there.
The school board used to do sort of like documents for the next meeting or something, you know, so that whatever was gonna be reviewed, if you did want to look at any of them, they were just all there.
Well, that would work too.
And that for the next, for the comprehensive plan, if that could get on the website, because it's a huge document that even today would give people a chance to look, anyone a chance to look.
All right, so resolution to adopt the GIlmer County Joint Comprehensive Plan, including the cities of LJ and East LJ. So that one's a go. Okay, so our first rezoning, John and Anita Schilling from A1 agricultural to R1 residential low density. I believe this was the one that they wanted to put another house out there. And they didn't have the acreage as A1. Yeah. Personally, I don't have any questions on it. I'm okay with it. Next one will be Lisa Merrill and Devin Merrill and Shelby Merrill from A1 agricultural to R1 residential. Build a residence on the surveyed tract. This was another one where they're trying to get the proper acreage for residence. Personally, I'm okay with it.
As well.
Okay. Discussion and possible action of approval of RFP for demolition of 2 poultry houses at the airport. Well, it's pretty obvious that the low bidder is the Jacob Anderson Company. What I would say is that I'm not familiar with them. I am familiar with the next low bidder and would be fine there. But there's a substantial difference between them. I think what we should do is check, we haven't actually checked the references. I think we should call some of these folks and check the references they gave. And if they are.
And not that it would matter in this particular situation because of the amount, but those RFPs are to be graded. Certain percentages allocated towards the purchase price and certain percentages allocated to references and things. But the disparity between the low bidder and the next lowest bidder, if those references check out,
I think he's planning on salvaging some of the stuff too, because he called me on the
That's
phone.
fine. Yeah, given the difference, I would feel very comfortable with the next low bidder, but given the difference in price, I I think we have to check those references, and if they check out, we'll be obligated to go with the low bidder on this one. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Discussion and possible action on budget amendments. The only thing that I want to propose that I really don't want to wait until the next scheduled budget amendment is we have one person that has transferred from one department to another. And I need a budget amendment just to have that person's salary for the remainder of the year follow them from the old department to the new department. Starting with next year, the money will be budgeted in the proper place. But since this is moving between departments, we just need to have an amendment so that the remainder of the salary for this year can just follow the person's old department. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That which department or?
It will be from the fire department to planning and zoning.
And that amount's about 14,000.
About 14,000.
That's benefits, taxes, everything. Did you want to go on and talk about on the capital side, the move from the road department to solid waste for the lift station? Or are you going to wait? We talked about the
Yeah.
250,000.
It is between departments, so,
On the capital side.
on the capital side, yeah. This was, what did we ask you, 200? 240. Okay, and what was, we were gonna move from the road? That was,
It was for,
the,
like, a motor
motor
grader.
grader? Yeah,
It was something that was budgeted in the road department that.
yeah, it was a motor grader. We're gonna have to come up with probably between half and 3/4 of a million to address that lift station out there. Remember when the engineers came in and did all this? And they're gonna request grants, but we've got to, we can't depend on them.
We can't depend on the grant coming through, or we can't depend on them.
No, we
applying
can't
for the
depend
grant.
on the grant coming through.
Right.
They better apply, we're paying
Right,
them to.
right, that's what I thought. Just
So,
want to clarify that.
yeah, no, we can't depend on the grants coming through. If they do, wonderful. But we have to assume that they won't in terms of our daily planning. So what I would like to do would be to move that capital expenditure for that motor grader that we won't get this year over from the road department to solid waste and add it to the money that we have allocated already in the capital for the lift station. And that will put us pushing $500,000 there. I don't know that that still will be enough, but it'll be enough for this year for what, for what we can allocate. We may still have to allocate more than 20. And if we can get grants, that'd be wonderful. We can reallocate that somewhere else. But in the meantime, this lift station is not optional.
Right.
We've got to get this done, so that's what I would like, another one that I'd like.
I understand, I agree with it. Don't like it, but.
Yeah, no, that's not the way I'd like to see us be spending our money. Discussion and possible action of lease renewal with the State Properties Commission. I haven't seen anything from them, have they?
On the lease renewal,
Yeah, in terms of responding to our,
we haven't sent them, you're talking initially, the first response that was received from them was with respect to the maintenance of the equipment that they brought in. And y'all did not collectively decide on what kind of escrow, I'm guessing with cost, the inflation index, but, it may be hard to calculate, and maybe the basis due to be well adjusted as well. It's, you know, it's 2,400, then 2,400 for probably 15 years. So just, if y'all got something in mind, just let me know, we'll plug it in, but,
I think we ought to adjust the base a bit and then put in a sort of escalator here as well.
I would encourage probably 3% or 2% at least, because your cost of your utilities are going up right now.
Yeah.
You're essentially giving this square footage away down there. You're paying to heat it and cool it.
Charging $1 square foot. Is it like 3,000 and something square
It's
feet?
less than $1 square foot.
Do we know exactly how many square feet?
I don't, I've got it.
That doesn't matter.
I've got
It says
it.
2,992 here.
Well, what I would think then is we make the base at 3,000, which would be like $1.000 something probably per square foot. Still the best part of you'll find anywhere. And an annual 2.5%. Well, that would be the figure I'd throw out.
For the, yeah, I'm fine with that. Does that make it comparable to others in the?
They're still getting a big bargain.
I mean, there's a benefit for that office to be in the courthouse, but at the same time, you know,
And
they're
that's going-
receiving a distinct advantage.
That's going up from 2,400 to 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
They've been, all of these years, they've been at 2,400. I mean, our utilities on this place, on the space that they're using, going up, who knows how much in all this period of time.
And the county also experienced some pushback earlier this year with respect to some fee charges.
And that'll be taken care of in it too.
Yes. It is actually on this latest draft.
Right. So, I'm good with that, Charlie.
Then-
You know,
Then what I would say tomorrow night is that we just authorize David to go ahead and make those changes and propose it to them. Anything else on that one? And do we need an executive session?
I can't think of anything.
I don't know.
You what? No, I don't.
So now we make a motion that we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, folks.